just as I manifested that I will move for the reduction in the, hindi lang reduction pala, in the office of the president, the deletion of the intelligence fund in the office of the president. At the proper time, I will move for the deletion of the confidential funds for the office of the vice president. Kasi po, marami tayong natutunan last week eh. For example, si Phil Post. Ay, nandito talala ko si Senator Tolentino po, ang chairman ng subcommittee. Phil Post needs, if I'm not mistaken, roughly the same amount. Not more than 500 million. So, and then, hindi po namin masolusyonan nung time na yon last week kung saan kukunin yung halaga to save Phil Post to reimburse Phil Post for the expenses on franking privileges. So yun po, marami tayong natutunan o nalaman last week na nangangailangan po ng funding, and nandito naman po pala may mga confidential funds na pwede namang i-let go. Actually, ang position ko po, pagbasahin natin yung definition ng confidential funds, hindi nga justifiable. Cannot be justified to be lodged under the office of the Vice President. Mr. Chairman, pwede po ba yun? Could the desire to fund the PhilPost's needs be a reasonable justification to move for the deletion of the 500 million confidential funds of the office of the Vice President?
I would not agree, Your Honor, because I think although PhilPost may have a need, I think maybe we should look for other sources and not prejudice the office of the Vice President. As the second highest official of the land, who deserves support, our support. We should want her to succeed, irrespective of whether we agree or that person. It's the institution we're trying to uphold, Your Honor. I think with expanded operations, then I think the office deserves our support, Your Honor.
The office of the Vice President, Mr. President, is being given 2.3 billion pesos in budget. Kung i-minus natin i-subtract natin yung 500 million, ang balansi po nun 1.8 billion pesos pa rin po yun for one calendar year. Do we still say that we are not supportive of the office of the Vice President even with a 1.8 billion pesos budget, Mr. President?
Well, we've never, out of respect, we've never decreased the office of the Vice President's budget, Your Honor. It would be a first. I would rather it not happen under my watch as committee chair.
So I have noticed that compared to the 2022 budget of the office of the Vice President, which was 700 something.
Yes, Your Honor.
I-round off natin 700.
702.
Yes. So the 2.3 is more than 3 times the budget of the previous fiscal year or calendar year. So are there no rules, Mr. President, on the limit on what the office of the Vice President can ask for its budget?
I'm not aware of any, Your Honor. This is the amount provided by DBM after discussion with the office concerned, the office of the Vice President. And I know this process includes a examination of the programs for the coming year and the priorities. So I think this is not an arbitrary amount in that sense, Your Honor. You're correct in saying that it is a big increase over the previous years, or this year's budget rather, and previous years. But the amount is, if you look at the trend since 2004, if I'm not mistaken, talagang halos nadadagdagan ho yung budget po ng OVP. But perhaps you're correct in pointing out the difference in degree or amount, Your Honor. So yun lang po. Tayo, it's an important office. We want to support it. So I don't think there are rules, hard and fast rules here, Your Honor. But if we follow the trend, we've been increasing the budget of the OVP over the past years, Your Honor.
Yes, yun na nga. I'm aware of that, but siguro not of this magnitude, no, Mr. President. Anyway, I just make that of record. And then I've read and reread the President's budget message, actually. So it stated herein that total agency requests is around 8 trillion pesos, if I am not mistaken. So, ibig sabihin nun, ang daming requests ng mga national government agencies na unfunded, not granted by the DBM, and I'm sure they looked at some formula. To control the increases of these budgets or requested budgets. Ang alam ko nga, di ba, titignan nila yung mga budget utilization rate, etc. So, well, at any rate, Mr. President, I think from the information that I have gathered, the Office of the Vice President requested during the budget call, kasi di ba may procedure po ito, merong cycle ito eh. The total amount of 709 million pesos, Mr. President. Tapos ang ending, 2.3 billion pesos. May we get the explanation from the chairman if he asked the DBM how this happened?
I'm not aware, Your Honor.
so-
But of course, there was a different occupant at the time the request was made, Your Honor. So baka I know that the current occupant of the office wants a very active role for the Vice President. And in fact, is opening satellite offices in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. And that would entail additional costs, Your Honor, for personal services, for maintenance and other operating expenses. So, yun siguro. I surmise, I've not asked the DBM directly, but I surmise a lot of things happen between the budget call and the budget preparation, and finally the submission to Congress under the NEP, Your Honor.
So apparently the DBM adjusted to the request of the new Vice President. So for the record, that 709 budget request was made by the previous occupant of the office of the Vice President.
I would surmise so. Your Honor.
Yes, yun nga po. So that's why we looked at the programs nga ng and then have a comment on the programs and projects and activities proposed by the office of the Vice President. But can we go back to the 500 million pesos confidential fund being given to the office of the Vice President? Kasi ito po yung definition ng confidential expenses. This is found in the special provisions. No? Found in the special provisions section 78. Confidential expenses are those related to surveillance activities in civilian government agencies that are intended to support the mandate or operations of the agency. Pagdating po sa mandate, may we know what is the mandate of the Office of the Vice President?
Well, it's the second highest officer of the land, Your Honor. They have a nationwide mandate, having been elected by 32.2 million Filipinos. So actually the mandate of the VP is there's no fixed mandate under the Constitution, Your Honor. It just states that the Vice President may serve as a member of the cabinet without need of confirmation. So there are instances historically where the Vice President is given a role by the President. So largely it's the President who determines what the role of the Vice President is in actual fact, Your Honor, because under the Constitution, there's a wide leeway or no fixed rule. Unlike in the US, where the Vice President is the President of the Senate, there is a legal mandate. There is no such comparative role for the Vice President in our country, Your Honor.
Yes, I think when our law uses the word mandate, Hindi po ibig sabihin yata nito yung that you were elected into office kasi ang ibig sabihin siguro nito is yung functions ng opisina, utos sa opisina under the law. And then since this is a constitutional office, the mandate would be found in the Constitution. And this is what we found in the Constitution under Article 7, no? Article 7, Section 7, on the duty of the Vice President. If the President-elect fails to qualify, the Vice President-elect shall act as President until the President-elect shall have qualified. If a President shall not have been chosen, the Vice President-elect shall act as President until a President shall have been chosen and qualified. If at the beginning of the term of the President-elect shall have died or shall have become permanently disabled, the Vice President-elect shall become President. And then meron din po sa Section 8, in case of death, permanent with disability, removal from office, or resignation of the President, the Vice President shall become the President to serve the unexpired term, etc. So that, as far as this representation is concerned, that should give us the mandate of the office of the Vice President, which is to be prepared to be President at any time, Mr. President. So, in my personal opinion, such a mandate cannot justify the giving of confidential fund for confidential expenses, Mr. President. Now, if we look at the programs of the Office of the Vice President from their presentation, ito po yung aming summary. Ito po ang summary ng parang balak nilang gawin sa susunod na calendar year or fiscal year. Meron silang medical assistance, burial assistance, libreng sakay, Disaster Operations Center, 7 satellite offices na nabanggit po ng chairman natin na gagastusan. Meron pagbabago para ito yata sa school supplies, yun po yung amin na pagkaintindi. Meron tayong magnegosyo taday, that's number 7. No? May kalusugan trucks. Merong relief for individuals, which is like AIX. Merong number 10, may Peace 911. And then the 11th would be an OVP permanent office. So did I miss any major plan or program of the Office of the Vice President?
It seems you mentioned most, if not all of them, Your Honor.
Dito, Disaster Ops Center. So, pinag-aralan po namin, Mr. Chairman.
I don't doubt that, Your Honor.
So, hindi, ito po, yun na nga po ang, that's why mapapalaki po talaga ang gastos natin. For example, if you want to build, is this build satellite offices? Build, rent, and then we need people. So, why is there a need, Mr. President? Kaya nagta-times 3 po yung budget kasi nga because of the plans, the projects, activities, and programs of as planned by the OVP for next year. Yes, sir. Sige.
I believe it's part of the mandate of the OVP to deliver public services across the country, Your Honor. Kung ano po, whether we admit it or not, we're a developed country at hindi po kompleto yung pag-deliver ng gobyerno ng lahat ng serbisyo. Kaya marami pong lumalapit sa Office of the Vice President sa burial expenses, medical expenses, the same people who approach us actually. Pero I would venture to think na dito naman po sa ating Vice Presidente, mas malaki pa yung pangangailangan nila kaysa sa atin. At alam naman natin, bawat isa sa atin nilalapitan, dinudumog po tayo ng ang mga opisina po natin. That's why we have public relations officers or political officers who deal with the public when they come, humihingi po ng tulong sa pagkain, sa pagpapaaral po ng kanilang mga anak, kapag tinamaan po ng kalamidad yung kanilang area, hihingi po ng tulong para sa paayos po ng kanilang bahay. That's the reality of our country, Your Honor. I've experienced it as a member of the lower house, and I continue to experience it as a member of the upper house. So I can only imagine the tremendous pressure felt by the second highest official, Your Honor. Tapos, baka sasabihin ng iba, pwede naman siya lumapit kay Presidente. Pero sa akin, parang sasama yung loob nung pupunta sa kanya. That's the reality, di ba? Kapag tayo, ni-refer natin sa PGH o sa kung saan-saan at hindi man lang natin inabutan ng pamasahe o pinamerienda, that's the reality, Your Honor. The sea of humanity that comes to us for assistance come to us with an expectation that they will not go away empty-handed, Your Honor.
Well, pero yung medical assistance po tsaka burial assistance, for example, kung may lumalapit kasi sa opisina na pinirefer namin sa existing program ng DSWD, the AIX nga na merong ang medical at saka burial assistance. So, is it our intention now or plan that the Office of the Vice President will replicate these programs of the other agencies of government and have its own standalone programs through its office, Mr. President?
Ay, di naman, wala naman hong duplication at tulong, supplement lang po ng OVP yun dahil nga maraming nilalapitan ng mga mamamayan natin. Tulad ng office ng 24 senador ho, nilalapitan ho talaga ng publiko at lahat tayo hinihingian, which led to the formation, in fact, of the yung office natin, Public Assistance Center or PAC, Your Honor, because senators were deluged with arrivals of people who were seeking assistance. So we sought to institutionalize the PAC in the Senate, the Public Assistance Center, which exists to this day, Your Honor, to coordinate the giving of assistance to those in need of medical assistance, yung mga nangangailangan po sa tulong sa pamilya, ano man yon, kung may sakit o may namatayan ho sila o kulang sa pang-tuition. That PAC is alive and very active in the Senate, Your Honor. So I could imagine ganun din po sa Office of the Vice President. Mas madami po ang lumalapit sa kanila at mas malaki po ang hinihingi sa kanila kaysa sa mga opisina ng mga senador because similarly, we have nationwide mandates pero yung expectation sa kanya being Vice President must be tremendous, I can imagine, Your Honor.
So advantage nga yung mga taga Metro Manila kasi meron din nga silang senadong malalapitan na wala tayong presence sa Mindanao, wala na tayong PAC sa Mindanao or sa Visayas, no, Mr. Chairman?
That's correct, Your Honor.
So itong 7 satellite offices po ng VP, ang ating bang plano rito, pursuing that logic, lahat po ng region ay lalagyan ng satellite offices? Is that the plan?
I'm not sure if that is the plan, but if that is the plan, it's not a bad plan because then it will institutionalize and spread out the services to be provided by the Office of the Vice President. At talagang mararamdaman po yung effectivity ng opisina, Your Honor. So maybe it's an attempt, we can see it as an attempt to institutionalize. Because yun nga, as you asked me earlier, what is the mandate of the OVP? Well, it's really very wide and there's very little institutionalization, so to speak, Your Honor. Kumbaga, it has employees, pero walang struktura masyado in terms, unlike national agencies. Meron silang regional office, meron silang regional directors. Dito po sa OVP, it's very fluid ho. So, the way I see it is these satellite offices is an attempt in a way to institutionalize the aid or the assistance that will be given by the OVP to our people, Your Honor.
Doon po sa 2.3 billion pesos na budget ng OVP, masisegregate ba natin yun? What is attributable to the plan or the project to establish 7 satellite offices, magkano po ang gagastusin just to have this as a reality na may 7 satellite offices?
Right now, they are... Ito, iba to dito. O under siya. They are budgeting currently around 150 million for each satellite office, Your Honor.
So, more than 1 billion na po yun, ano? So,
Opo.
more than 1 billion of the 2.3 billion will go through this, will go to this PAP of establishing 7 satellite offices. So, pag sinabi po natin 150 million per satellite office, I'm assuming na meron na pong PS din doon na naka-attribute siguro sa isang satellite office, may MOOE at saka are we building the structure or are we going to lease the structures?
Just renting, Your Honor.
Renting na lang. Okay. Kasi ito na nga yung epekto. Ano? Anyway, we have mentioned the bottom line increase na times 3 tuloy dahil nga because of the PAPs planned by the Office of the Vice President. Pero am I correct in assuming, Mr. Chairman, that by the next budget cycle, kasi times 3 itong times 3 ang budget nitong Office of the Vice President for 2023. In the next budget cycle, dadaanan naman natin yung budget utilization rate, di ba? Mr. Chairman, makikita naman po natin if the agency can absorb or did absorb the amount poured into the agency. Mr.
That's
Chairman?
correct, Your Honor.
Okay, so ang problema kasi, Mr. Chairman, if the amounts are dole-outs or giveaway, madali talagang ma-achieve po yun. That is, kasi ito po nakita namin, for example, nagtaasan kasi lahat, even yung mga items in the budget of the OVP. Supplies and materials, I will just round off the numbers from 45 million to 263 million. Professional services from 41 million to 193 million. Tignan nyo kung tama mga figures ko. Sabihin nyo kung mali ako. And of course, confidential from 0 to 500 million. Then financial assistance / subsidy 357 to 920 million pesos. Then representation 29 to 79 million pesos, traveling 25 to 59 million pesos, and then rent 18 to 32 million. Yung rent na-explain na because of the plan to rent the satellite offices. So, yan po yung, and then bottom line nga, yung bottom line, times 3 po yung bottom line budget of the Office of the Vice President, which has ballooned to 2.3 billion pesos because of the PAPs, the PAPs submitted or planned by the Office of the Vice President. So, since pumasa sa DBM yan, and then anyway, we have the mechanism in place in the budget process nga sa susunod. Mari-review naman po natin kung anong achievements, paano ginastos, andyan naman din si COA to audit. And then, but I still, so parang ano na po yan, maybe if the appeal is to give the OVP a chance to execute their PAPs, then because of the overwhelming mandate given to the new occupant by the people, 32 million po yata ang boto po ng ating Vice President, the highest ever, even higher than the President. So we will be testing the OVP's usage of its budget for 2023 in the next budget cycle. Doon po natin makikita. But I will still maintain, Mr. Chairman, that tayo naman gumawa ng mga definition ng confidential fund. Tayo rin gumawa ng definition ng confidential expenses. Per our own definition, per Congress's own definition of confidential funds, the Office of the Vice President is not entitled or should not be given confidential funds. That is my position, Mr. Chairman.
May tanong ba?
Wala tayong phone din ngayon.
Sir, baka gusto nyo ito na yung capital outlay nila kasi nag-increase sila ng
And then meron pang third item kasi yung ano no, yung budget kasi natin is categorized into PS, MOE and CO, capital outlay.
Yes,
We have noticed also the huge increase from 3.6 million this year to 42.5 million next year. May we just get an idea po why?
The 42.5 million capital outlay is used for the purchase of motor vehicles as well as down payment for any proposed land acquisition where a permanent office may be built for the office of the Vice President, Your Honor.
Yes, 10 million po yata yung sa ano lang sa land acquisition.
Yes, Your Honor.
So these are for vehicles to be used by the office of the Vice President. Okay. So hindi na katakataka yun dahil ang dami ng ahensyang di ba,
Pag lumipad ho si Vice President from Manila to Davao, hindi naman pwedeng sumunod ho yung kotse sa aeroplano. So siguro kailangan may aeroplano din ho siya doon sa nasusundo ho sa kanya doon.
Kotse.
Yes, Your Honor.
Kotse. Nabanggit ni Chairman, aeroplano eh. Kotse lang, sir. With the permission of our Chairman, Mr. President. Last week, when we were considering the budget of the Office of the President, I pointed out the 2.25 billion confidential fund and an additional 2.25 billion intelligence fund for the Office of the President. So, question ko po yun. So, to be consistent, meron kasi kami listahan ng mga nabigyan ng confidential and or intelligence funds. The Office of the Vice President is one of those agencies given CIF. For this office, it's actually CF, confidential funds, in the amount of 500 million pesos. And then sa notes ko po, nakasulat doon na this is new in the sense that the 2022 budget for the OVP does not have an entry for confidential funds. So but in the budget hearing, committee hearing for this for the Office of the Vice President's budget, the Vice President stated that she is deferring to the good judgment of Congress on what to do with the 500 million pesos in confidential funds given to the OVP. And I've noticed in our committee report, there's no change in the overall budget for the OVP. It's around 2.3 billion pesos. I-round off ko na lang po, no? I think it's 2.92, pero 2.3 billion pesos rounding it off. So what's the meaning of this, Mr. Chairman, that we retained the 500 million pesos in confidential funds for the Office of the Vice President?
Yes, Your Honor, you're correct. We've retained it because there was no motion to increase or decrease the same amount, Your Honor.
That motion can still be made here during the plenary.
Yes, Your Honor, because
Period of amendments.
there's a period of amendments. There's still the bicameral conference, Your Honor.
We're still in the period of interpellations,
Yes,
Mr. Chairman.
yes, Your Honor.
Okay, so at the proper time. Yes, I understand the request. Saka marami rin po nagre-request na tinanong ko rin naman po yan na I think meron din ng DBM na parang schedule na on the agency's purchase of their vehicles. Okay na kayo? Sige na yung point ko.
Just for the record, Your Honor, to take advantage of the lull, the proposed budget of the OVP for 2023 is only 0.04 of the total 2023 budget, Your Honor. 0.04%, just for the record, Your Honor.
Okay, so I will just reflect on that input from our chairman. Give me time to also compute the percentage of the budget of the previous OVP's office of the vice president. But for ano na lang yan, for our future use. So Mr. President, yun na po yun siguro. I'll just act on my manifestation that in due time I'll make the motion, and then siguro nga just to differentiate po to differentiate COP, si Office of the President, wala siyang sabi sa atin that pinapaubayan na nila ang decision on the confidential and intelligence funds to Congress. Wala, pinanindigan nila yung confidential and intelligence funds nila. Unlike the Office of the Vice President, sa committee hearing, sinabi ni Vice President Duterte na ipaubaya ko na yan, ipasa ko na yan sa wise judgment of Congress. So siguro at the proper time when we go over my motion, we keep this in mind na gusto nyo bang banggitin ko pa yung mga nangangailangan ng funding sa listahan natin? Marami. Ito po yung mga natutunan natin, Mr. President. Supplemental feeding program needs an additional 400 million. Senior citizen law needs an additional 25 billion. Bureau of Fire Protection needs fire trucks. Children's Hospital needs 468 million. The stud farm for PhilRacom, pwede natin, kung magsagay successful yan, pwede natin pang-export yan, needs 50 million. Special education needs around 500 million. NAPSI, the National Anti-Poverty, needs 50 million to implement the law. CHR needs 5 million to continue as the national protection, NPM, National Protective Mechanism. Veterans Hospital, also, although grant na yata to ni Mr. Chairman. NBI for their building. Film Development Council for their building. PCGG requesting for 20 million. DFA, marami. The promotion of the UNCLOS Award, 29 million. Off-site temporary passport services, 136 million. At marami pa pong iba. Like, of course, we can always supplement the assistance programs of DSWD, DOLE, the scholarship programs of the DOST, CHED, DEPED, and TESDA. And ito po sila, they can certainly use, and I'm sure they certainly would welcome additional funding. So, could we all, Mr. President, I thank the chairman for his patience as well as our vice president and her staff. Thank you po sa inyong oras na binigay po sa akin. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you very much to the distinguished minority leader, and we will definitely study any of his proposals in the coming days. Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Madam President. Is there any other?
Yes, Majority Leader.
Yes, Madam President, before I move for the proper motion, I believe our distinguished colleague, Senator Bongo, would like to make a short manifestation. May I ask that he be recognized, Madam
We
President?
recognize Senator
Thank you.
Bongo for a manifestation.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a quick manifestation of support. I just want to express my full support for the budget of the Office of the Vice President. Mr. President, as I have mentioned during the hearing, first time in a very long time po na muling sabay nanalo po ang magkaalyadong presidente at vice presidente sa ating bansa. Kaya masasabi ko po na she will work closely with the president and thus needs all the support she can get to perform her duties. Malaki po ang aking tiwala kay Vice President Sara Duterte. Alam ko pong magiging malaking tulong po ang mga programa niya para sa ating mga kababayan. Would like to reiterate my full support for the budget of the Office of the Vice President. Thank you, Mr. President.
We
We-
take note of your manifestation with appreciation. Thank you.
Yes, we'd like to thank our Vice Chair, Senator Bongo, of course, who also hails from Davao, and I'm sure the Vice President and the Office of the Vice President is very appreciative of his support. Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There being no other member who has manifested the intention to ask questions and interpolate, I move that we close the period of interpellations and debate and consider the budget on the office of the Vice President be deemed submitted for the body's consideration. I so move, Madam President.
The motion is carried. The budget of the office of the Vice President is submitted.
Thank you, Madam President, Majority Leader, dear colleagues. Thank you to the Minority Leader. May we ask for a 1 minute
Yes,
suspension,
that's
Your
fine.
Honor?
1 minute
Before we
suspension.
suspend, I am certain that when we opened, we already acknowledged the presence of the Vice President, and we truly appreciate that. And please take note, all agencies and departments of government should heed what the Vice President and even the Secretary of Finance and the other agencies who have stayed till the wee hours of the morning. The head of the agencies are present face to face here in the Senate. So thank you for that. Session suspended.
The distinguished minority floor leaders recognized.
Mr. President, since we are tackling the budget not only of the DEPED but also of the attached agencies, no, if I'm not mistaken, and then it's a free for all, we can ask questions sa lahat na yon. So siguro at this point, since I'm the only one left naman in line to ask questions per schedule of the Majority Leader, I move that we excuse the Vice President already. We can allow her to leave our interpellation, our session, so she can attend to some other entries in her schedule, Mr. President. If our chairwoman does not mind answering questions without the Vice President as the deputy.
First of all, I'd like to thank the minority floor leader for being gracious to extend that courtesy to the Vice President, being that she's been here since 1 o'clock, actually 12 noon in the Senate. So we leave it to the Vice President if she so desires, together with the chairperson.
Mr. President,
But we thank the minority floor leader.
the majority would like to join the motion of the minority leader, Mr. President, considering that you have never experienced this before, Mr. President, that our very own Vice President who heads an agency is actually around during budget deliberation on the floor.
And that is why I admire the Vice President, because she sticks by her family, both her OVP family and her DepEd family. And since the beginning, since the committee hearings, until our discussions today, I admire her perseverance.
But before the body designs, let me relay the sentiments of the Vice President Secretary. She appreciates your motion, Minority Floor Leader, and everyone's concern for her. But she doesn't mind at all, and she would prefer to be here to support the attached agencies. Pero maraming salamat daw sa pagmamalasakit nyo. I'm the youngest here. And she is the youngest here, and she is a woman, and therefore, she is very much capable of staying for as long as she is needed. I'm sorry we had to say that.
Tama.
Again, we thank the Vice President for your patience, ma'am, and perseverance. It's good that the Vice President's only 38 years old. We appreciate that. Okay, Majority Leader, yes, sir.
We can relate, Mr. President, we can relate.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Then I move that the Minority Leader be recognized for his interpellations. Thank you, Mr.
Please
President.
proceed.
Thank you, Minority Leader. Thank you very much.
Sige, salamat po, Mr. President, Majority Leader, and with the permission of our chairwoman. I looked at our committee report. Ang committee report po natin increased the budget of the education family or the cluster by 911 million pesos. Tama po ba yan, Mr. President?
Yes, Mr. President.
And then, ang napansin ko po, the committee has no recommended increase for the Office of the Secretary as well as for the Philippine High School for the Arts. All the rest, meron eh. So, may we know why the committee no longer recommended any increase in the budget for the Office of the Secretary of the Department of Education?
Sila na mismo. Hindi, pati si high school. Mr. President, that is a very good observation, and I'm happy that it was brought up because we would not want anyone to conclude that that there was nothing left for us to improve on. Because in fact, what happened, Mr. President, because of the huge budget for flexible learning, DepEd took the initiative to realign to many other important budgetary needs within the Office of the Secretary and also with the attached agencies. So pati ho ang Philippine High School for the Arts na napansin nyo. Yeah, and others, Your Honor, received realigned amounts, Your Honor.
Internal na bale. So the bottom line did
Which we
not...
supported, Your Honor, which we supported. So that is reflected in the Senate version naman po.
Sige, can we have an idea? For example lang, ma'am, let's just limit it to the Office of the Secretary of DepEd. For example, internally, how much was realigned from what original expense item to where?
Sure, Your Honor. We can give you examples of
And
that.
then yung total amount po ng gumalaw. Yes, Mr. President.
Nagulat din ako, Your Honor, kasi it's the first time in the 4 years that I've seen this. But that's really because napakalaki nga nung flexible learning. 19.96 billion, Your Honor, close to 20 billion yung budget ng flexible learning, no? And so here I will read, no? A total of 15.7 billion was reallocated to the following programs and attached agencies. Sa indigenous people's education, which we pointed out when we were asked by Senator Risa, 101,072,000. General management and supervision, 1 billion ito, Your Honor, for the construction and repair rehabilitation of various regional and division offices. Learner support, 97 million. Ito po yung mental health program. Child protection program, 33 million. Special education, this was highly discussed both in the hearings and here, 531 million, Your Honor. Operation of schools for elementary, 212.8 million. This is to accommodate, address additional MOE requirements due to updating of enrollment figures. And then operation of schools for junior high school, 14.8 million. Operation of schools for senior high school, 207.5 million. For teacher quality and development program, which is for to enhance the Teacher Education Council, establishing a scholarship program for students in the teacher education program, institutionalizing the National Educators Academy of the Philippines, and so on and so forth, 92.3 million. And then ito, malaki ho ito sa basic education facilities, 3.2 billion, Mr. President, for repair and rehabilitations for calamity damaged schools. Mga may lima pa. Would you like me to complete it?
Yes, ma'am.
For national assessment systems for basic education, this is for the procurement and implementation of the National Career Assessment Examination, the ALS accreditation and equivalency, qualifying examinations for Arabic language and Islamic studies, this is 276 million. For basic education curriculum, which covers the development and provisions of activity sheets to grade 1 to 3 learners, and detailed lesson plan for teachers and the bilingual policy implementation, and for the senior high school review and provisions of curriculum guides, this is 5 billion, Your Honor.
Billion?
5 billion. And then for computerization program, to procure 1,170 e-classroom packages with 46 laptops, 2 charging carts, 1 smart TV instead of individual laptops or tablets. So this is a program that, if I remember right, fits six classrooms. Tama ba? Natatandaan ko, 6 classrooms yan. This is 2.4 billion, Your Honor. And then the National Literacy Policy and Program to enable DepEd to function effectively as the chair of the Literacy Coordinating Council. This is 12 million. And then for early language literacy and numeracy, this is 58 million. This is to increase the number of trained ELLN implementers, develop guidebooks, and so on. And then for the development and promotion of campus journalism, this is 44.8 million. And then that is all, Your Honor, for the office of the
Yes, thank you.
secretary. For the attached agencies, National Book Development
Wag na po.
Board received 10 million.
Ma'am,
Sorry.
pwede. Para let's just focus on the OSEC
Kasi
first.
medyo maingay yung isang grupo,
sige
kaya
po.
hindi ko ho kayo narinig ng maayos. Sorry about that.
So, was the entire budget for flexible learning
Hindi naman.
reallocated? May naiwan pa for 2023?
Doon yun yung gagamitin niya sa blended, ganun, no? Mr. President, it's 15 million out of 19 million lang naman ang na-allocate.
Billion.
15 billion out of the 19 billion was reallocated to the items that I mentioned, Your Honor. So
Okay.
So there is still 4.3 billion remaining under flexible learning, Your Honor.
Sige po. And then, since at the time of NEP, close to 20 billion ito,
Yes,
diba? Tapos we can afford to reduce it by 15B, only because what is the main ground that we...
Your Honor, the
Because-
pandemic, kasi that funding was really huge because
Okay.
this was our pandemic response to if not no face-to-face, very limited face-to-face. So because of
Sige.
the transition, this is the budget, Your Honor, specifically for the self-learning modules. If you recall, in the previous budgets, we were discussing yung mga literally hard copies, no, printed copies of self-learning modules.
Na maraming issue din as to the quality.
Yes.
Tama po ba yun? Yun yung nabasa natin in the
Yes,
past few
yes.
months. Diba? Same issue on mga books, the quality of the books. Diba? May mga errors, may mga gano'n. So if there had been errors in books purchased
more?
by the DepEd o what more dun sa mga mimeograph, ano lang, and I think highly decentralized yata yung effort. Can we get an explanation? And then marami tayong nabasa no na the past few months on the controversies on the modules, and then the excuse given to us is siya may kasalanan or the region ang may kasalanan. So it was highly decentralized. Tama ba yon? And then if this is the system, what has happened to the errors in the books that the DepEd has been procuring? Yung issue ni Dr. Go ba yun? Dr. Go years ago, meron pa rin bang napapansin na ganun po?
Ayan. Well, Mr. President, for the self-learning modules, the issues raised are right now irrelevant at this point because the students are back to face-to-face learning, Your Honor.
But why did they happen?
Well, first
Yeah,
of all, that happened during the previous
Yes,
administration, to be clear, no?
Hindi, I'll just interject no. Kasi I'll be asking about the 2.4 billion laptop. Also previous ano yun eh. Previous
problema.
previous ano pa rin yung administration but still the same
Yes, yes, of
department. So ganun po yun. So like, why did it happen? Bakit ang daming issue dun sa self-learning modules po? Quality control, bali ang aking ano, my point is quality control.
Okay. Yeah, Your Honor, because this representation handled the budget in the last 3 years, no, I will give my own response if it is acceptable to His Honor. The Secretary clearly just took over in the last few months. In fact, it's my Chief of Staff who was pointing out that when we raised during the budget also the questions on the quality of the self-learning. Yun nga, may mga controversial dyan na kung ano yung mga nakasulat, ano. Ang nasabi ng DEPED, and please, si Yusek Anang ang kasama ni Secretary Liling at that time, these were produced, they looked into the issue as each issue arose on a case-to-case basis, and those were materials produced by teachers, not coming from the head office, locally produced materials. So it's not that they were saying it's okay, but they recognized that it happened on a local level, on a case-to-case level po.
So it was too decentralized such that may parang nagkaroon ng autonomy at that level. Then feedback mechanism na lang. Pag abot sa taas may problema, saka magre-react. Okay, if that explains the modules, how about the errors in the books that DEPED has procured? And meron pa rin bang errors sa current batch of books that we're using in our public school system? Meron pa ba?
We're checking, Your Honor.
Apo. Dr. Boyan, Dr. Harigan.
Focus naman na sa DepEd, will undergo the review, and there will be a teacher's guide correction. If,
Oh, yeah. Pero may recent report kayo. Kasi sinabi naman niyo yung dati pa. So ongoing naman yun. What's the name of your group that oversees that? Ano ba? What's the name?
Notes to teachers are issued and uploaded.
No, but what's the name of the unit that handles that, the agency?
Error watch.
Error Watch, oo. Okay. Okay. Mr. President, they have a team called Error Watch, and they continuously are studying this, receiving reports and handling errors found in all materials, no, including the self-learning materials that were produced during the pandemic, other printed materials, DepEd TV, DepEd Commons, DepEd TV YouTube channel. All of them are being monitored by Error Watch, and I will be the one to say that they welcome, no, tama, they welcome mga observations that are made, and if there are in fact errors, then they make the change through teacher's note. Of course, that doesn't apply sa mga TV and YouTube channel, no, but for the materials that are with the teachers, they have what they call teacher's guide, teacher's notes for those revisions to be made. Sana yung teacher's note sabihin na mismo sa class, sa bata na i-erase para yun na yun. Okay, may ganun naman
So
daw.
they're doing that.
They're doing that.
So we have an Error Watch team.
Yes.
Okay, so we're glad to know that there is such a team. So how many years has this team been in existence, and any
Page sana si-
achievement report?
How long has it been? Sorry,
How long has this been in existence, and then ano yung achievement report po nila?
Oh, ano
Ang na-describe kasi sa atin yung parang flowchart nila, what they will do.
2020.
So is the report, wala na errors? Ganun ba? So
You continue to receive reports from Error Watch. Oh, gusto niya ng progress report eh. Ano ba? Nabawasan na ba?
ano po ba mga tanong niyo? I-summarize nyo na ito, di ko na ito
You haven't received lately? When was the last? They haven't been receiving reports lately, Your Honor. So they believe na through their efforts naman, nabawasan na talaga din ang mga errors na ito? Kasi syempre kung aware na ang teachers, edi settled na yung issue.
Before October 2020.
How do I read that?
Here na, total number of reported errors validated.
Ito lang.
Ilan yung naayos? Ito yung error. Naayos to lahat. Na-address to lahat. There are one.
So after June 2020, wala na. After June 21, wala na? Wala na kayo natanggap or wala pa kayong report? Yeah, so they showed me a table that showed their what do you call this? Their initiatives after they received the reports of the errors until June 2021. Wala na daw ho silang na-receive na reports after that.
Okay. Wala rin naman pa ako nababasa rin na mayroon pang may nag-point out. Pero it will be disappointing kung may mag-point out na outsider, no? From outsider of the DEPED.
May internal din ba kayong nahahanap sa teachers o laging nanggagaling sa parents? Sana nanggagaling sa teachers din.
Quality assurance team.
So sila. Meron din naman silang nahuhuling errors, Your Honor, na with sila na ang nakakahuli, so hindi na nakakalabas, Your Honor. That's it, Your Honor, if that satisfies.
Yes. I'm just processing the information. Pero let us say and then does the discovery of errors affect the eligibility of the
Yeah.
printer or publisher contracting with DEPED?
Printer. Meron bang ganon? Ano? Meron ba? Hindi katulad yung mga dati pa. So at least in the last few years, oo. Mr. President, wala pa namang na-ban because the errors daw that were found were minor and not commensurate to not commensurate to banning the publisher.
Okay. Wala namang publisher na even after pointing out the error, still
Continued. Oo, yun nga.
carried over the error in the next year's supply of books. Parang gano'n. Wala naman siguro. Wala naman tayong nababasa rin.
Wala to, Your Honor.
Yes, at least galing na sa DEPED yan. But, clarify lang natin, functioning yung back, di ba? Except that you were busy with your regular procurement items. Tama po ba yun? Just to be clear. Functioning.
Functioning.
Okay,
They said it. No, that's so I clarified. It's not as if it was not functioning. It was they were functioning, but limited ang function because of the restraints that they had. Constraints.
But still functioning as a back. Still procuring items for the department. Tama po ba
Still
yun?
procuring items.
Except that you did not welcome the additional workload, ganun ba yun? Of procuring 2.4 billion worth of laptops. Ganun po ba yun? That's the message I'm getting.
2.4 nyo nga, wala sa plan. Oo. So, Your Honor, tama kayo, it's fully functioning, pero I guess it was determined at that early stage na since wala nga ito sa procurement plan and there's another agency of government that can handle that, pinahandle na nila doon. Correct.
Di ba 2021 ito?